still struggle with like the feeling of like guilt if I do invest in self-care.
Mm.
But every single time I do, it's like that initial little internal battle. And then in the end, I am grateful that I did it for myself.
It's been exactly a year since my first episode with Amy, also known as Curious Papaya on social media, and I'm so happy to have her back in the podcast. From the writing of her book to her definition of success, a lot of things happened, and Amy will genuinely share everything with us. Hello, Amy. Welcome back on the Crochet Podcast. It's been a year.
Hello. Yeah, it's almost been a full year. Thank you so much for having me again.
Of course, it's crazy. You were my first episode ever, and now you are back. I'm so happy about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I've been watching how you've been growing and like all of the different other guests that you've had on the show. So I'm honored. It is my pleasure.
Oh no, it's my honor always to have you on the podcast. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I like listened to our first episode to kind of refresh myself on like
Yes,
what did
yes,
we already share and like what am I gonna add today that's a little different. But in that first podcast, we talked a lot about I think we filmed on my very first day of going full time. And for me, what that
yes. I
meant was
remember
uh,
because
yeah.
your kids started going to school.
Yeah, for me,
Yes,
that was like a huge difference. So
yes,
looking back then to see like my work hours and how much they have changed now, whereas like I'm able to get everything done during the day now that they're
yes.
in daycare and whatnot. Like it's so different. I was like burning on like fumes, I think back then.
I'm sure that's a
Yeah.
lot to
Wow.
manage it
What a
both. So
huge difference.
what do you feel? How do you feel a year after of being full time? What are your first impression?
Man, well, I love it, first of all. I think like the things that were such luxuries to me, like being able to choose wherever you wanted to work for the day, like being able
Yeah.
to go out to like the bookstore, bookshop, I mean, or the cafe, like that was such a luxury. And like
Yes.
I was like, it felt like such a special treat to be able to do that. And now it's like,
Yeah.
wow, I have this like privilege to be able to do that whenever I want right now, the flexibility. It's so
Yeah.
nice.
It's so much freedom, right?
I think that's the word. Yeah, the freedom and
Yeah.
everything. It makes me feel inspired to be able to like change up my surroundings and just get, you know, motivated through like not just being cooped up at my desk every single
Yes.
day, you know?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. You don't have this pressure of having to be 100% productive all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Because when you
Hmm.
don't have a lot of time, I'm sure before that you had to be productive. You were saying like as soon as you had 2 minutes
Yeah,
free,
that's true.
you were
Ooh.
working and stuff like that. So now it's a little bit less pressure. But you say
Yeah.
so you feel free to decide what you do every day. Do you still stick to a plan? Like let's say every week you need to do like specific stuff or it just whatever you want?
Oh, I mean, I think that really depends on like what season it is. There are certainly certain seasons where like the design workload is a lot heavier, and
Mm-hmm.
other seasons where I have a little more flexibility and I can work on market prepping and just have a little more like leeway with things. And
Yes.
like yeah, but I still have to like keep myself on schedule in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Like I need like a bit of structure or a bit of containment so that I can
Yeah.
see like, hey, this is what I need to accomplish in this week. And so like what works for me is just having like a work notebook. And like in general, I am a big journaler. I have to like externally process, you know,
Yeah.
my goals or my thoughts or the things I am wrestling with, little lessons I learned through running a small business and like
Wow.
even like small little accomplishments that I want to celebrate. I like journal everything down so that I
Oh
can
my God,
remember.
that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really helpful. And then like that works for me in terms of like creating like a weekly to-do list and then like
Mm-hmm.
I can kind of cross it off whenever I can get to it. Because
Yes.
otherwise, if I don't write anything down, I'm kind of like, what was I just doing? what did I need to get done by this day?
Yes, yeah.
And so yeah, it
And
helps to
sometimes if you
create a bit
get
of a schedule.
distracted, you don't remember what you were doing and stuff like
Which
that.
is like always. I kind of like
Yeah.
shared a little bit about this in like a different little reel I made, but like I went undiagnosed with ADHD for all of my life. And
Oh, wow.
specifically, I think there is like a stigma in like at least my parents' generation. Like they have a
Mm-hmm.
lot less understanding, a lot less resources, you could say, in understanding what ADHD is. Like
Mm-hmm.
it still
And to
existed in their
recognize it.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did exist, but it's just they had less tools to, yes, recognize and also like um what's the word, like learn how to navigate like
Mm.
it. Yeah, and so basically like because I'm in charge of scheduling my own things and setting up my own deadlines and all of that, it
Mm.
really helps to understand like, oh, there will be days of like high function, high motivation with the way that my brain works, and there are
Mm-hmm.
other days where I will just feel super drained, super exhausted, and I have to listen to that. If I try to push against that
Yes.
and swim like upstream in a river, it's just, I'm just exhausting myself more. And
Yeah.
really, it's my body informing me that I need a break, whether it's a physical
Yeah.
break, mental break, creative break, so that it could replenish itself and so I can like come back the next day feeling refreshed.
Yeah. I feel if you push it, you will tend to
Mhm.
have a burnout. Like you,
Oh,
I don't know, the more
absolutely.
you push it and more you touch the burnout, because I've been there before
Mm.
trying to push, push, push. And at one point you can't just take it anymore, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like with creative work, I feel like it's not like a like a machine. You turn it on and it's expected to function consistently
Yeah.
every time you do so. But with creative work, sometimes you go into it with your tank more full, and sometimes you go in running a little emptier. So, really knowing when you need to take that time for yourself is super important to avoid that burnout. I agree.
So what do you do to take care of yourself in that case? What do you like to do?
Honestly, I'm not an expert at it. I'm not like super consistent at self-care because I think I still struggle with like the feeling of like guilt if I do invest in self-care.
Mm,
But every single
yeah.
time I do, it's like that initial little internal battle. And then in the end, I am grateful that I did it for myself.
Yeah.
And like recently, it's been like letting myself get into TV shows and like watch the series that I've been wanting to.
Yeah.
I think for other people that might sound sort of like unheard of because they're like, what? You would deprive yourself of that? Like, why would that be considered a luxury or a form of self-care? Isn't that
Yeah,
just
but
like,
just doing nothing but that, I
yes,
totally get it, because it's
yeah.
already a challenge to not
Mm,
crochet while you do it,
exactly. Yeah,
right?
and a lot of
Yeah.
times, yeah, I'm like purposely not keeping my hands active with that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's something simple or like letting myself go get my manicure and pedicure, when
Yes.
I'm like always thinking like I could do it myself, but the thing is I actually hate it. I don't like doing my own nails. And like I do
Yeah.
it because I'm like, well, I could save money. So letting myself indulge in that, for instance, is like one another way that I do that.
Yeah, because you have to drive there, so just that it's already a break. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so, but it's more like my brain can turn off when I let somebody else who's like a professional, like do it. And they
Yeah.
do it so much
Yeah.
faster than I do. I
Yes,
feel like,
true.
oh, I make a mess of it. It takes me like 2 hours and like I just don't enjoy it. And all to
Yeah.
save like, however much money, like,
I sometimes you have to invest in yourself, like I
Yeah,
think
that's
it's important.
true. It is a hard concept for me that I am trying to get better at. Mhm.
Yeah. I feel you can get there if you, yeah, be patient. I'm struggling with that all the time, like the guilt, and you said it earlier, the guilt of
Mhm.
not doing anything is
Mhm.
like, whew, maybe with time, I don't know, maybe with time.
Yeah, it's like yeah, it's just like you remember to fill other people's cups, because we have I have two little kids, so it's just like a natural thing. I always make sure that they have their meals squared away, that they have like snacks
Yes,
that they enjoy, that they get to go to the park and burn off that energy. But it's like, wow, a lot harder to do it for yourself, especially when
that's
it's
true,
like
yeah.
in the context of running a small business. You feel like you're not allowed to have breaks. But yeah, so anyway, just talking out loud about the process of taking care of yourself.
Well, thank you for sharing your little techniques. I'm sure it can help some
Mm.
people because a lot of us, I feel like, struggle with it. So just the fact we know other people struggle with it, I think it makes us feel
Mhm.
better.
Uh,
Well, I want us to talk about a big, big subject, a big thing that happened for your business, which is your book.
Yay!
Oh my God,
Yeah.
Amy, like when we did the last episode, I remember you're saying my dream, my goal, one
Yeah.
of my goal is to write a crochet book. And a year after, you are on the Crochet Podcast to announce that you just published a book.
Oh my goodness.
That's
Yes, that
amazing.
is right. Oh, thank you so much. I really like aspired to like share my creations and teach other people techniques
Yes.
and things that make them feel more confident in, their crochet abilities in general. And like
Yeah.
I remember wanting to write a book very early on in my design career, you could say. Um, but rather than like immediately receiving like acceptance letters or emails, I should say, um, I think facing like rejections early on really helped
Yeah.
shape me and like motivate me, constantly putting into perspective that I have a lot that I could learn first before I
Mm.
I have to refine my skills first in my design, to be more like recognizable before I go ahead and do this.
Oh, yes. We were talking about
Yeah.
that also during the last episode to
Hmm.
build the brand image. So, do you
Yeah.
think it helped you getting chosen to write a book?
Yeah, well, how it happened was actually last summer. So I think actually at the time that we had filmed our first
Yes.
podcast, it was in talks, but I didn't like sign
Yes.
anything yet. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
you
why I
told
couldn't
me
like mention anything.
offline.
Uh-huh.
You were telling me, like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm in contact, but I'm not sure.
Ah, I
So,
see, I see.
nothing was sure.
Yeah, so how it happened this time around was there was acquisitions editor, and then they actually scouted me out from like Instagram, seeing my works and my designs on there.
Mm.
And then they had reached out with a prompt, and they were also like so amazing with communication, and were
Mhm.
very much communicating like, but you're the professional, you're the artist here. If you have other ideas, we definitely want to hear
Oh,
it.
wow.
Yeah, and I think I
Okay.
really appreciated that, because
Yes.
when it was completely open-ended, sometimes that makes it a little harder to know like what
Yes.
the publishers are looking for and also what the audience is looking for. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and so when they had proposed amigurumi animals and critters in general, I was like, that's actually a wonderful idea because it's a very like wide niche. Like everybody loves
Yes.
animals and plushies.
Yes.
And so I think starting off my first book with something more broad like that, it gave me a lot of creative freedom, which I felt like I thrived the most in. Like when they
Mm.
were like, here are, the reins, and you take it, and we trust you
Yeah.
to do what you want
That's
with it.
good.
Yeah, and
Wow.
so it was
Okay.
definitely an honor to like be able to bounce our ideas off of each other and to ultimately create something that I hope will appeal to a very wide audience.
Yes, I think you will. I saw, so it's 25 patterns, right?
Yeah, and there are a
Wow.
few like There are a few of my original designs that I had before, but then there are also going to be
Okay.
a bunch of exclusive patterns only found in this book. So they won't be in my shop or
Ooh.
anywhere else. So yeah, that's like, oh, I'm excited to share that. And also like, oh, but I wish I could do like a spin-off, on like
Yeah,
cooking.
I understand. It's always a hard
Yeah.
part. Like you want to share with your audience, but you also have to keep it exclusive.
Yeah, for sure. And like I think something I was thinking about since I was just recently able to start sharing and promoting this book that's on pre-sale right now
Yeah.
um was like how lucky I feel, how privileged I feel to have this chance and this opportunity because like I was trying to find the statistics on this, and the most recent statistic I was able to find is from 2023, where it said only
Mm.
3.94% of authors in general are of Asian American descent or AAPI. And like
Oh,
for me,
wow, that's very low.
it is very low. Now, I think that is considering like all genres. So, if you were to
Okay.
narrow it down even further within like the crafts and hobbies niche,
Yeah,
like
it gets even smaller,
it's so
I'm
small
sure.
and insignificant that I was not able to find any statistics on it. So I was like, well, it would have been nice to be able to throw a number out there, but there's like it's been so tiny that there are no
Yes.
studies and no like actual real numbers put out there. So
Wow.
yeah, I
You are
mean,
changing the
I
game.
mean, no, I think for me, when I think about it, it means so much to me to have this opportunity to um, you know, like create some representation for anyone
Mm.
who can relate with my background, and I think
Yes.
like it is a very non-traditional career to go into with like full-time design.
Yeah.
And truthfully, it's still not very widely recognized or like not a whole lot of people know it like what it is when
Yeah.
you tell them I actually create crochet patterns. Like first of all,
Yes.
they don't really know what crochet is. They're like, oh, if you say
Mm.
knitting, then they're like, oh, okay,
Yes.
and then there's
Yeah.
usually like very little follow-up to it. But in general, I think like there have been a lot of hurdles that I've had to overcome because of like my ethnic background. And there's not really any moment in time where I'm not like aware of my cultural identity and like of my Asian American identity in general.
Yeah.
It's hard to put into words, but it's like I'm just
I get
always
it.
aware of it
Yeah.
and how others may perceive me through it. And I think
Oh,
that
wow.
might be
Yeah.
something that like other minorities relate to. Um, because I think I remember this one very defining moment um, where I was speaking to my French teacher in high school, and she was like one of my favorite teachers, even to this day. She had such a lasting
Mm.
impression on me. Um, and there was an embarrassing moment. So this became like a core memory for me because I was just curious. Like, she was born and raised in America, but she was fluent in
Mm.
French and she was very passionate about teaching the language as well. And so I was like, Madame, what are you? But then to me, if I were to hear, like, hey, what are you? I automatically know what that question is implying, which is like, where are you from? Like,
Mm.
what language do you speak at home? Stuff like that. But she,
Uh-huh.
like, was jokingly kind of like, I am offended. Like, oh, la la. She was like, I am human. Thank you very much. And then we were kind of like
Yeah.
laughing about it. But I was like, no, but what are you? Like, I didn't mean it in an offensive way because I had just understood what that meant. But I now also see that that is also like when it's said to people of color, it's like considered a
Yeah.
microaggression, but I,
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. Oh, yeah, I that's
yeah, it's no
kind
longer
of
appropriate
frustrating
now
I
to be
feel.
going around
Yeah.
talking like that. But I think I was born and raised in the Midwest, and where I was, like, we were
Mm,
definitely still a big minority. Whereas
yeah.
I don't think about it as much of being a minority or whatever. in the current place I live in like the
Yeah.
Bay Area, because I feel like it's a lot more diverse, but particularly
Yes,
there
yes.
is a high concentration of like other Asian Americans here, and
Yeah.
like a ton of different Asian, like I mean, different ethnicities, I should say, here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you can be very proud of yourself. I love that. I really love that. He's really inspiring, and I hope he inspire other people too. You know.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely want to bring more awareness to it and celebrate other people of color who are pursuing a career in like the arts and like in creative roles, I think.
Yeah.
Just because
Yeah.
there are very few of us. And like even with sharing with my family, I think something interesting is I have learned that the expectations I might have had about like how accepting or supportive they might have been, um,
Mm.
like just because they don't give me what I was expecting doesn't mean that, they, how do you say? I mean, I should say that they just understand it differently. Like, they're not going to be in my face, like, I'm so proud of you. You've been dreaming of this. There's
Yeah.
always a
Mm.
little bit that they're holding back, kind of like their hesitations of, like, well, okay, if it's something you really care about, I guess go for it. But I even shared like the cover image of my book, and I shared with them like this
Mm.
month actually in like um messaging apps, I was like letting them know like,
Yeah.
yeah, actually I like wrote a book, and like, it's finally out on pre-sale. And then the response from my dad was silence. He just started sending me pictures of his recent trip and just totally changed the subject. And I was like,
Oh my
did he
God.
see it? Did he happen to like skip over it? So then I like kind of brought it up again, and I was like, yeah, I've been working hard on this project, and yeah, I'm excited. It's like with this and this publisher, I'm gonna have it ready in January 2025.
Mm.
Silence again. And like I like told my husband about it because it kind of irked me, and then I realized like
Yes, I'm sure you did. It's tough.
yeah, but I think like someone else put it this way, that like uh pursuing something in the creative, I guess, atmosphere is really difficult for our parents' generation to like grasp,
Yes.
because anything that's
Yes.
abstract, right? Even like digital graphic designing, like that.
Online business and stuff like that.
Mm.
YouTube and stuff
Yes,
like that. Yeah.
like they don't equate that with like being successful
No.
in a way, because it's not.
Having a
Yeah.
career or yes.
And
Yes.
I forget
Yes.
that, like, oh, both of my parents grew up, oh, well, my dad in Taiwan and my mom in South Korea, very, very
Mm,
poor. Their parents had
yeah.
to like hustle every single day. And my mom actually like didn't even really grow up with her parents. Like, she kind of had to fend for herself. Her grandma like took care of her, and they were in the countryside, no electricity, no plumbing, and so I think like
Wow.
for them to hear like I'm creating like, oh, little plushies and like stuff like that, they don't really like see the functionality of it. And so it's hard for them to like accept or even recognize it as like, oh wow, this is kind of like, this is awesome. This is a big deal, you know?
This is a job and this is a career.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
little bit of pushback, and like though there are times where I feel I was feeling a little discouraged, like, man, I just wish they could just say something like, I'm proud of you. But you're not gonna really get that from Asian parents. And like maybe this is more of like
Yes.
a well-known stereotype, but like they don't say I love you. They show you that they love you by cutting up fruits and like, you know, providing for you,
Yes.
making sure that you have the things you need to succeed. Um, but it just looks a little different from like the warm, like words of affirmation, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah. No, I totally agree with you because here,
Hmm.
like for example, my husband grew up with an American
Mm.
mom, and they're always very encouraging, and her son is the best thing ever, and things like that. And I grew up very differently because in
Mm.
France it's a little bit like we don't I mean, parents encourage you, but in a totally different ways than in America.
Um,
So I can understand like the need to sometimes feel, are you proud of me or not?
oh,
Like, are you disappointed or are you? And the only time I think parents don't realize online money is real
yeah,
money,
yeah, no,
and
it's like
it's like YouTube money can convert to dollars, like
exactly. I had that right.
that's
I think
crazy.
the initial disapproval comes from like, well, if you're choosing a path where there's no like security or consistency
Oh
guaranteed,
yes,
like
security is a
that's
big
where their
thing. Yeah.
disapproval comes from because for them that's like everything they worked so hard for to not put on us to have that like
That's true. Yeah.
uncertainty day to day if you're going to be able to eat or not, or you really had to claw your way to get to school and like get an education and everything. And even my mom actually didn't really have like a
Yes.
full or formal education. So you know I think that is really important to consider when you're trying to explain to them like no, right? And it's funny because I just had that talk with my
Yeah.
mom, like, yeah, I got paid from the publisher because like I finished my book, whatever. And she was like, oh, it's not like
Mm-hmm.
gift cards like that you can spend at a store. And I was like, no, it's like cash. It's
Fortunately not.
yeah. Like this is my full-time career.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
is always interesting, and I think there's a lot to learn from that too. Like just understanding the context of
Yes.
things and understanding what success looks like for them versus what it can look like for people living in today's age with the internet and the power of
Yes.
YouTube and all of that.
Yeah. And I feel also like it can be success, professional
Mhm.
success, because I feel my parents thought I was more successful what I was doing before.
Mm.
But in terms of personal success, I'm so much happier. And I feel like for parents, sometimes it's hard to understand you follow that path
Mhm.
just because you want to be happier
Yeah,
too and
right.
feeling a better mental health and stuff, because I was struggling with so much stress and now it's so much better. So I feel a lot our parents shows sometimes a professional success but didn't really care about their mental
Right.
health. And now we are a
Mm.
generation where we are a little bit more
Mhm.
focused on that. Do you
I
think?
agree. I can definitely relate with that. I think like something you said there like took me back and I was like reminiscing and I was like, yeah, it's like a joke that we like banter at, but my mom's like, well, growing up, nobody struggled with depression. Like we didn't have that. It didn't exist back then.
I'm like, okay.
And I'm just like, I think about it. They were like in survival mode constantly, right? They were dealing,
Yeah, it was
uh,
different.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so like,
Even more for your
mhm.
parents. Like, I feel it was way more
I can
complicated.
see how this helped my mom survive a lot of very difficult situations of her life growing up and everything, and even into adulthood with, my parents going through their divorce. This mentality of like survival really helped the whole family to get through it, you know. And so I know that part of my
Yes.
mom isn't necessarily going to change overnight to have that more like how do you say awareness about like mental health and stuff, but I think it's allowed
Yeah.
me to be able to process things that generations before me wouldn't have. And like we're talking about like generational like trauma even or things that need healing. And so yeah, it's like interesting to see how it starts with me like being able to think about things and dream about pursuing a creative career, but also experience a lot of healing and exploration too with like understanding my past and like how to even like create boundaries, how to like have successful relationships with like difficult people in your life in general. Like, yeah, I think the way that
Yes.
I'm able to approach it is all thanks to what my parents set me up for, whether they realize that or not. you know.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I feel for your, we were talking about that on Instagram last camp, but I feel like for your kids, you're also gonna be an inspiration, you
Mm.
know, and thanks to what you decided to do to follow your dreams and your
Mm.
creative path, you know, you can inspire them to do the same and be happy actually in what they do and stuff. So you are just creating a new generation, and I think that's amazing, you
Wow,
know.
yeah, that also sounds like, ooh, a lot of pressure too when you think about it. It's like, oh my gosh, and
But you don't have to be an artist.
yeah,
It's
I think it's like the most important thing that I would like to pass on to my kids is like the values of resilience and the values of, you know,
yes.
holding strong to your value system in general.
Yeah.
Um, Knowing what you
Yes.
believe in and like fighting for that and like whatever
Yeah.
career they choose. Yeah, I just hope that it's fulfilling for them in the sense of like they feel like they are able to give back to the community, that it's not there's not as much pressure on like, you know, how much money do you earn from it. You know, it's more like, well, if you're going to be able to
Yes.
take care of
Yeah.
yourself and be successful and yeah, I think that's what matters to me. For
Yeah.
our parents, it was like you should only go into professions that can ensure, you know, financial security, everything like that, which is important. I can't argue with that. Bills
Yes.
are
I get
real, you
I
know,
get
they're
it.
not
Yeah.
going to pay themselves, but
Yeah.
it's just approached a little differently. Hmm.
But you can pay your bills in a lot of different ways. I think
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
that's a good thing to teach the kids. It's
Mhm.
we always talk about how we don't have kids yet, but with my husband, who is an artist too, we always said, "Do you believe our kids are gonna grow up seeing us being artists, and you can do
Oh,
anything? You know, everything is possible." And I think that's very inspiring.
agreed.
So earlier we were talking about success, which I was saying like I'm happy, so I feel successful. What is your definition as a small business owner? What do you feel you reach success by
Yeah.
writing a book, or do you,
Mm.
what's your definition of success for you?
Wow. That is a really loaded question. And I think that's a great topic to talk about because I assume a lot of viewers of this podcast are people who are designers themselves or people who want to grow in some way, their
Yes.
accounts or, you know, aspiring designers, all of that. And I do feel like sometimes it's easy to have like info overload on social media and to get to like start forming this perception that success means one, you open your own website and you move
Yeah.
away from Etsy. Two, you write a book because it seems like everyone and their mothers are doing that nowadays. Three, you make um, like over $10,000 a month with your side hustle, right? There are those certain like very specific details where it's like,
Yes.
actually, I don't fully agree with that because while some accounts have been able to grow overnight in explosive, very viral ways, I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of lessons, well, maybe there are different lessons that they learn and are able to share, but I feel like a lot of lessons in developing even like character in as like the small business owner yourself, they're learned through slow growth and through facing like difficulties in running a small
Yes, and
business.
problems, and yes,
Right, problem solving,
absolutely.
all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all of that adds to like our overall knowledge and expertise in general, our experience, right? So
Yeah.
I do feel like just because you crochet and you're looking to be successful doesn't necessarily mean you have to fit this like box. Um, like I think I see some people are very like very pushing towards it in a very unnatural way. And what I mean by that is like they feel this need to stay on top of trends. They feel this need to like take whatever is like, you know, popular at the time and to ride on that. And then what you end up seeing is a lot of similar looking creations rather than any real like creativity.
Yeah.
Um, And I think it does take like a, discernment, like the ability to discern whether or not like a design is adding and contributing to like the crochet world in general. I don't know. Um, or if you're just doing it just to like be relevant for the day, and then you're
Yes.
going to be forgotten
Do
about
you do
the
it
next day.
because you know you can make money with pattern and just decided to do it, or do you do it out of creativity and passion for it, right?
Yeah, it's a little hard for I am surprised at myself at how much difficulty I feel like I'm having with like putting it into words. Like, what does it look like to be successful? Just
Mm-hmm.
because like I am also exploring and navigating that for myself. Like, I'm here sharing about the obstacles I feel like I've overcome as an Asian American creator in general, and
Yeah.
and a part of a minority in authoring a craft book and all of that. But then I'm also saying like, oh no, that's not what success should be defined as for everybody. you know
Yeah.
so I
I
feel
mean,
like
for personal,
mm,
you can be proud, and I feel that's a success.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it
And
sounds
that
maybe cliche, but oh yeah, go on.
it, I will say it's a success. It's a success in a way that I know how much work it is. And I know how hard it is to write a book because I've talked to many designers that wrote a book. And just that, for me, the fact that you manage to put it out there, I think that's it's not the book itself a success. I think the work you put into it is insane. And
hmm
that is something I think you can be proud of.
Oh, thank you.
It
Yes. Yeah.
seems so much work.
Right. It was like, I think the biggest thing I take away from writing a book is not the book itself, but it
Yeah.
really, really challenged me like to grow in a lot of ways that I didn't know I needed to grow in. I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing. And it's all going to take some time to process because I absolutely loved it. But do I want to jump right back into doing it all over again? Like, the answer is actually yes. But I know
Really?
Yes, but I know how I would approach things a little differently the
Yes,
second time around.
you learned. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me, I was given, whatever, like a 6-month window to develop 25 patterns. And some of them could be existing ones, like I said, but the majority of them I believed in should be new and exclusive to the book, just to
Yeah.
give more of that appeal of like why
Of
it's
course, yeah.
worth, investing in and whatnot. And I think like I was constantly like kicking myself in the butt when my creative gears were not working. And a part of navigating the design life or role as of a designer when you have ADHD is like you just cannot force it at times. But I
Yes.
constantly put that pressure of like I only have this and this much time, so if I'm pacing myself accordingly, then I should be able to get one design done every single week for the next, I don't know, however many weeks, right? I can afford 2 weeks off where I don't come up with anything if I want to meet this deadline. Then I have to think about photographing everything, creating the backdrops,
Yes.
which I hand cut all of my paper backdrops for each of my animals for this book. Because I wanted that, like,
Really?
yeah, I really wanted to add like an extra special kind of like create my own
Uh,
backdrops for it. And I always loved paper crafts too. I don't,
yes, that's so
yeah.
you. I feel like that's
Yeah, that's also something interesting, I guess. I, yeah, so I was like, I have to take into time to do all of that. But basically, I just felt like I was putting more and more on top of this plate that I had to like keep chipping away at before I felt totally consumed by it.
yes.
So I don't want my second experience to feel that way. Now there is the reality that writing a book and designing patterns for a book where you can't share anything about it and everything, there's like always going to be that challenge because so
Yes.
much, yeah, like so much of what we feed off of is like the energy and the feedback of our community, right? And I'm so grateful
Yes.
that like I feel like home base for me is like Instagram, the people that have followed me there since I first started the account. I think almost 6 years
Mm-hmm.
ago now, which is crazy to imagine 6 years, you know? And yeah, and I think not being able to share anything, part of that
Yes.
like it like took away the excitement, you know, for
Yeah, you will have want
yeah.
to share the process and stuff like that. So do you think
Mhm.
next time you write a book, you will be negotiating the right to post or something like that? Because I
So
know a lot of
interesting.
publishing company don't want you to share, right?
Yeah, to be honest, I think there's a good reason why the publishers have it within their contracts that you're not supposed to share about it prematurely.
Okay.
A lot of it is to protect you as well. Just because like you post about something doesn't mean that like somebody else cannot recreate that too. So
Oh,
yeah.
yes. I didn't
Mhm.
think about I didn't think about yes, obviously.
Yeah, no,
Mm.
no, but I totally understand because I thought the same thing. Like, if I could go about sharing about my designs in an upcoming book the way I would if it's a design for my own personal website, you know,
Mm-hmm.
then, oh, maybe it wouldn't feel so like, you know, locked up and boxed up. But
Yes.
I just need to learn how to approach it differently, is what I'm taking away
Mm.
from all of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, for one, I think I would really like to negotiate the timeline going
Yeah.
forward.
6 months is
It was
short.
short, but I think I was like very like I think this is good because I need a lot of structure. I need like deadlines to keep me in check, you know, and then I didn't realize like how much mental and creative energy that really
It's
required. So
yeah.
yeah, that was my
Yes.
lesson. It's not gonna stop me from like doing it again. So in a way, I guess it was very good for me to learn that about myself, my limitations, and also like what work conditions I thrive best in, so to
Yes,
speak.
yes.
Yeah. But with that being said, I am like in talks of like wanting to develop a couple more books, different concepts. But I think back to like times I feel were very like big milestones in my authorship, I guess, like journey. And like
Yes.
one of them was particularly when I was like super excited. It was like 2019, so 1 year into designing. I had reached out, or maybe 2020 actually. I had reached out to like two very big notable publishers, and I had like thrown my pitch out there, but it was without any sketches. It was without any formal proposal. It was just like a written like
Mm.
here's my portfolio, like you can check out my Instagram, that kind of thing, you know? And
Okay.
like little did I know how many like proposals they actually go through on top of like having
Yeah.
their own acquisition editors who like scout people out because they recognize a certain like shine to them, so to speak.
Mm.
Yeah, and then
Yes.
so I think taking those early losses was so pivotal for me being like, you know what, I'm going to take that and let that fuel like my desire to constantly improve, constantly learn and see how I can really make my work stand out more. Um
Okay.
yeah, and then I think like
So that was always in the back of your head
oh
when you
yeah.
were creating and posting content, you were always thinking about the book.
In a
That
way,
was your
yeah,
like
like
main goal.
cuz I feel like a book really is like it's like your a portfolio of like your best works or like your best
Yes.
designs,
And it's
right?
all in one.
Yeah, and so for me, I was like, oh, I guess I'm not there yet. I'm still very much in need of exploring different techniques and different, even like yarn types, different styles, and like finding what really resonates with me. And like
Mm.
yeah, you know, and dabbling in a little bit, I mean, dabbling in different types of crochet or even using different materials, like drastically expanded like my knowledge base and like what I can do with these materials, you know? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think back to like my dad and I used to be like long distance because he lived apart from us, or he was often traveling for work when I was like really little. And
Mm-hmm.
so he used to write me letters from like wherever he was traveling. So, it's funny because your
Oh,
name is Crochet Pink Pumpkin, but
yes.
come to think of it, yeah, my dad would always address all of his letters as like, "Dear Pumpkin," and he would
Oh,
draw a little pumpkin. And that's coming from someone who is a first generation American. Like, pumpkin is not a pet name or like a endearing name in Chinese,
yeah.
so it's interesting how he
Yes.
adopted that. I always thought that was unique. But he'd always write to me, and as I got older in high school, he would still write to me, and it was mainly through email. And like
Mm-hmm.
maybe a couple of weeks ago, I had found a thread by accident because I was searching for like keywords or something in my inbox looking for something. And this
Yeah.
message thread was about how he got a progress report from my biology teacher. And like it was like I went from like I got like a D on a test or something. And it was a test that everybody tanked. Um but he said it he wrote to me in a way where he's like, "I'm very concerned, like what happened?" And it was nothing bad, but for some reason I wrote back with so much sass, and I felt so guilty looking at this now, like almost like 15 years later, right? I was like, "Gosh, dad, everybody flunked this test, and that's why like the teacher's offering a retake, which he never does, by the way." And I was like, "Oh," and like he
So much
right?
attitude.
I forgot what it's like to be a teenager. I was like, "Oh, oh gosh." And he was like, "Haha, okay, sorry. I just wanted to push you up by pushing you down." Quote, end quote, right? Pushing you down. And I was like, yeah,
Okay.
I was like, that's kind of like endearing and maybe not the right choice of words, pushing you down, right? But I knew what he
Yes.
meant, which was like,
Yes.
and it
Mm.
wasn't even anything that harsh, but that's how sassy and sensitive I was as a 15-year-old high schooler or something.
Y- I mean, it's tough sometimes to.
Right. I think it's because like it was coming from someone whose opinion I like cared so much about too.
Yes, that's all about what do you care or not, like
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think about that, and that's related to the rejections I received early on when I was trying to find a publisher who like could work along with me on this project I had envisioned, because I was like, it's thanks to those early rejections or early losses, I would say, that prepared me mentally for like future losses and lessons to be learned too. Because
Yes,
just because I
it
wrote a
made you
book
stronger.
successfully, right, and it's not fully published yet, like where you can get it on stores yet, in stores, I should say. But I think like to think, oh, I've made it and everything is like the most dangerous mentality I feel I could have, right? I always want to keep on learning and always want to think of how I can keep on improving. And um,
Yes.
yeah, I think circling back too, because I don't know if I ever answered your question. Like, what does success look like? For me, that's probably
Yeah,
how
but
I
I
would
think
phrase it.
you just gave an
Yeah.
answer.
I
Yes.
was just thinking, I'm like,
Yes, I
mm.
was thinking about that, and I think you just answer. It's just how to always improve yourself
Mhm.
and getting better and stuff. I feel it can be
Mm.
part of the success, because if you don't improve and you never learn anything, do you really feel successful?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know.
Right. So, in short, to never stop learning, never stop
Yes,
improving your craft.
yes,
Mhm.
yeah, that is so true. So you feel you are getting closer to success, right?
Right. And it's kind of one of those things where I feel like, hey, I can experience it right now and I can look forward to it in the future as well. You know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think celebrating small victories are also important. I know it did help me to be happy about little things, because if you just wait to reach this big step,
Hmm.
it's going to take forever. So just be happy, with what you achieve and stuff like that. I think it
Yeah,
helps.
absolutely. Celebrating all of the small wins. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's hard, like I don't know if you feel that way, but we have so many creators also on social media and stuff. It's so hard not to feel that you are less successful than someone else, because everybody
Mm.
shares their success and share, like the big steps. So sometimes it's hard to feel like, oh, but I didn't do that, or I'm not there yet and stuff. So
Right.
it's important to just look at what we do
Mm-hmm.
and being proud about that.
I think, yeah, for sure. This generation in general, too, has an extra pressure to them to equate success with numbers. Um, we didn't even have
Yes.
that like 5, 10 years back, I feel. And like social
Yes.
media is so
No.
powerful in that way. Um, it could really like allow someone's dreams to like blow up overnight or like completely destroy someone's sense of worth and their confidence and even being
Yes.
able to like do it because maybe they're struggling with growing their account or whatever, right? So there's a lot of power in that.
Yes.
um but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see how much things change too so rapidly. So I think that's why, again,
Yeah.
it goes with like the importance of being fluid and being flexible, being teachable, um, like adapting to the changes in social media. Because
Yes.
back then, like the number of likes was so important, and
Oh my god. And
yeah,
now?
it's like you have the ability to even hide the number of likes because like Instagram has
Mm-mm.
decided, for instance, that that's not the most important thing, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, if you base your like worth to
Mhm.
engagement,
Uh,
don't do that because you will feel if you feel your engagement is showing what you are worth, don't do that
right.
because you're gonna get so discouraged.
Mhm.
I don't even look at my numbers
I
and stuff
stopped doing
because
that.
it's been going down,
Yeah.
and I'm like, it's never gonna
Hmm.
be what it was or whatever. When I
Uh-huh. There
started,
was a time where it
it
peaked.
was,
Uh-huh. Yeah, I feel like yeah.
and now I'm like, okay, well, I struggle to have 1,000 likes, and I'm
You're getting a
like,
thousand what?
so, and
Yeah.
it can be very tough, like
Hmm.
it can be very hard mentally to see that everything is
Hmm.
declining, so yeah, not looking at stats I think is
Yeah, I
important.
think like one thing to note too is it's awesome to go viral, but just to keep in perspective, no one will remember you tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like no one's gonna remember
Yes,
or think
and
about that the next day or the week after. So it shouldn't be the
yeah,
goal to like go viral per se. Because I
no,
think one of the things
yes,
people shared when I asked them, like, if you've gone viral, what is like one lesson you want to share? People were saying how it's hard to recover from going viral because now your average, like whatever viewership or whatever, like feels like it tanks and feels like you're doing something wrong
yes,
because you're never going to achieve that
yeah,
like random video that went viral. You know what I mean? So,
yes,
yeah,
yes.
that having that as a standard is you just have to know like the power of it. It's awesome to go viral, but it's not the end goal kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel also having a backup plan. Like going viral is one thing, but what do you do if it
Yeah.
goes viral? Because you still have to transform that. We both know Instagram doesn't pay a crazy amount of money if you go viral. It won't pay you rent. So what do you do if you go viral? Like you still have to think about this kind of stuff because going viral doesn't pay the bills. I
Mm.
feel, on Instagram at least. So I feel also we were talking about that with, with a creator, and she was saying like, "Oh, I went viral, but that was it." You still
Yeah.
have to
Yeah,
convert
conversion.
this audience
Yeah.
and do something with
It's
it.
always exciting, I'm sure, to go viral, but that is also like when you're reaching like outside of your target audience. So a lot of them,
Oh
yeah, they
yes,
might
that's
not know
true.
anything
Yeah.
about your business or your specific niche, but yeah. Anyway,
Yes.
you covered everything on that.
Yeah, no, that's true. If we are doing crochet, so you will want to target people that crochet and potentially buy your crochet patterns and sews. If not, it's just views and likes and stuff like that. No, I get it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all this advice on how to deal with your small business and with success. I always feel you are so genuine and you always give the best advice. Like, I don't know, like you always say the right thing to make you feel better. And we always talk. It's been what, 2 years we know each other, or 3 years, and you always have the right things to
Oh,
say.
gee.
So I'm so happy you shared everything in this episode.
Thank you. I'm so honored. And I definitely don't feel like I have all the right things to say, but it's exciting.
No, but I don't know,
Uh,
you talk with experience, and I
I feel
really
you.
like
Yeah.
you're honest with your challenges and stuff like that. A lot of people will tell you, "Oh, everything is
Oh,
perfect," and I really appreciate you being very
I
genuine about
appreciate
it.
this opportunity to just chat about everything small business and just sharing like the love of creating together. So thank you.
Yes, of course. Is there is anything you want to add before we end this episode, Amy?
Yeah. My book is on pre-sale right now, Amigurumi Critters, and
I
yeah,
will
I'll
put
share
the
you the
link
link to
in the
do,
description.
so if anyone wants to pre-order that for the pre-sale price, I think it's like going for $13 right now,
Okay,
and I have zero
that's a
control
good deal.
over, yeah, the listing info. So I was like, wow, take
Okay.
advantage of it until, before it jumps up to regular price. And yeah, we'll share the link
When
for
will it
that.
be available to when will your book will be available?
So I believe the
Wait,
estimated
sorry.
release date, no, no, not at all, is January 2025. So we still have about four or five, wait,
Ooh,
I'm doing my math wrong, 5-ish months. But I feel like people always
yes.
receive it like a couple weeks earlier, and you can pre-order already right now. So yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. That's really exciting.
Thank
Congratulations
you.
on that.
Yeah, I'm excited to get it into people's hands. And other than that, I want to thank everyone for joining and just listening and sharing
Yes.
listening to us
Thank
share
you.
about our passions. And so I wanted to give a gift to everybody,
Yes.
and that's going to be a pattern that's limited download. And so I'm going to send Matilda the link to get that pattern. And so, yeah, that's our
It's
little
gonna be
gift.
in the description down below. Well, thank you so much, Amy. I will put all the details in the description. I wish you a lot of success for the launch of your book,
Thank you.
and I'm really really happy to have you on the podcast again.
Thank you again. It's my pleasure. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Bye bye, Amy. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this new episode of the Crochet Podcast. You can find every link in the description. If you want to pre-order Amy's books, you will find the link as well as her free pattern. I see you very soon for a new episode. Please take care. Bye bye.